Lord Jon Connington is my favorite character in George R. R. Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire series. I would hazard a guess to say that that is common knowledge at this point, and I would hazard another guess to say that I've probably talked more about Lord Connington than anyone else has in the 14 years that have elapsed since the publication of A Dance with Dragons, the only book in which he appears. This fixation of mine does often prompt questions. Why do I care about this guy so much? He only has two chapters in a series with well over 300 and much more prominent characters. What makes those two pieces of writing stand out so much to me? Why does Jon Connington matter? What does Jon Connington mean to me? Well, today, on my 25th birthday, I aim to reflect on that issue and discuss what exactly makes this character one of my favorites in all of fiction. Because my brain is fully developed as of today, and I figure I should probably address it in some form or another. I'll also warn you going in, this is a little different from my typical Ice and Fire fare. While I do discuss and analyze Connington's character in this video, I'm doing so in the context of why he speaks to me so much and why he's my favorite character. As such, this is a bit more personal than a lot of my previous work, save for maybe my video on disability and Ice and Fire, and I'd love to hear which Ice and Fire characters that have made the greatest impact on you in your life in the comments, as I genuinely believe that any character in this series could change a person's life, even Delp. I first read A Song of Ice and Fire in my adolescence. At 16 years old, the series opened my eyes to the ways a single writer can express so many facets of the human condition. Chapter after chapter, George R. R. Martin became these characters, showing me their thoughts, fears, hopes, dreams, and struggles. Through him, I became these characters. The series moved me the first time I read it in 2016 and quickly became my favorite book series, and it endured as a light for me even through the cloudy sky that was the ending of the show that had acted as an introduction to the text, given that Game of Thrones was a complete disaster and it was the way I was kind of brought into this entire world. But I didn't need A Song of Ice and Fire until about 3 years later. The first time I reread the series was as a freshman in college, about 18 or 19 years old. At that point, I was meeting new friends and having new experiences that I still treasure to this day. My world was opening up. Yet at the same time, that year was one of my darkest. Such a transitional period left me feeling like I'm sure many do, adrift and unsure of what was to come. In that darkness, I looked to the light of my favorite book series, and in it, I found a mirror. Lord John Connington is an anomaly of a character. He springs into existence in the fifth book in a series, and just as quickly becomes a viewpoint. And in the time since that book was published, the author has mentioned him by name only once. That is once in the past 14 years, and fewer times being referenced than any other viewpoint character that is still alive in the series, in reference to progress in the Winds of Winter. But it's his becoming a viewpoint character that so illuminates who he is. When we meet Griff, he's gruff, intense, and kind of an asshole. None of these perceptions are incorrect, he is all of those things, yet they diverge from his inner life, one defined by fervent devotion and love that defines his every choice. John Connington's chapters hit 2019 Quinn like a ton of bricks. Without going into too much detail, my time as an adolescent was defined by one romantic relationship. It was my first love, and it was everything that such a relationship should be, which, I will note, is very different than Connington's unresolved and, as far as we know, unrequited feelings for his Silver Prince. During the time that relationship was happening, it was very real. There were moments that you lived for, and there were difficulties that you wished you could soon forget. But after it was gone, after that sun had set, all that remained to me was a beautiful ghost, memories of who she was, and someone I would never find again. It was this darkness that I got stuck in during that freshman year of college, and it was in that darkness where I saw myself in John Connington. I think one of my fatal flaws as a person is a tendency to live for other people. That might sound like an asshole's answer to a job interview question about having greatest weaknesses, as saying something that isn't bad, but I don't necessarily mean devoted to others in a way that is good or healthy. As I've gotten older, I've noticed the way I define myself is often within the bounds of those around me, and very strictly so. Specifically, I tend to get lost in the relationships I take part in. In those situations, I feel that I'm half of a single whole. whole. I'm not the full picture. And it allows me to focus on creating external happiness for others instead of reflecting on what's really going on inward. And I think that tendency has very much caused me to repress a number of issues throughout my life, leading to further internal turmoil, if I could speak. This is something I'm still kind of internalizing and addressing in my life as it stands now, but it's a hell of a lot better than it used to be. And I think that's thanks in large part to Jon Connington. That mirror I saw in John is someone who lives fully for someone else. His chapters present the danger of defining yourself solely within the bounds of another. Not only is it limited Connington's perception of himself, it's actively harming his present happiness. We glimpse passing thoughts of a fairly happy life with the Golden Company and a new partner in Miles Toyne, yet it isn't the same to Connington. He ultimately abandons the present for his past. He leaves the Golden Company to go support the son of this man he yearned for so long. And this devotion to a person passed on to the son drives him to fall for this fairly obvious ploy by Varys and Illyrio to place a prince of dubious legitimacy on the Iron Throne. He's so caught up in this one version of half of himself that exists in an imagined past that he chases an illusion from Essos back to Westeros, raining destruction in his wake. Martin often speaks of writing the human heart in conflict with itself, and Connington brings that heart's focus specifically to love lost. I saw in him someone who lives their life for another person, as I had done, someone left adrift and lingering in a world apart, only given new purpose in the renewal of some bygone duty to the echo of what came before. I found that I was defining myself in much the way Connington was, solely by what I'd lost. In that moment, seeing this individual torn apart and left as an unsettled, unfulfilled ghost for decades, I saw what I might become if I allowed myself to linger in such a state. Jon Connington motivated me to improve. Connington also taps into another element of my mental state in a way I really haven't seen done much before. Specifically, his grayscale gives him this fixation on time, and I've had a very similar focus for my entire life. As long as I can remember, time has been fascinating to me. I drove my parents crazy by asking what o'clock is it as a toddler. My first grade teacher taught me to read an analog clock before the rest of the class because I kept asking her the time. I don't know why, but the passage of time has always been something I'm cognizant of. And as I get older, that knowledge has started to weigh on me. I'll never be as young as I was yesterday. Every minute I spend doing something I am doing at the moment, I could have spent doing something else. Obviously, these aren't revolutionary realizations. Everyone has these realizations every day, I assume, or at least people with my OCD brain. But they've always shaped the way I move about the world. As we enter Connington's head in The Lost Lord, the reader can immediately detect a similar fixation in him, though we don't quite know why. Through Tyrion's eyes, when we first meet him, Jon Connington seems patient and unflappable, yet suddenly he's rushing for a goal line that seems very far away. At the end of the chapter, we learn why. He's contracted grayscale, which will undoubtedly kill him. He's on the clock and needs to get things done while he's able to do so. This sense of the weight of time and a looming existential dread are things I've generally carried with me for a pretty long time too, though admittedly for much less justified reasons than Connington. I am, as far as I'm aware, not currently infected with grayscale. I would also be remiss not to mention that I think Jon Connington is also excellent representation for the LGBTQ plus community. Though I'm not a member of that community myself, many people who are close to me are, and it's excellent to see them represented in genres like fantasy, where oftentimes that can be just kind of glossed over in its entirety. And I think Martin does an excellent job of depicting Connington's love for Rhaegar in a way that is just love, pure and simple, and anyone can understand it regardless of your views or who you're attracted to in reality. I think Martin has painted Connington as a perfect tragedy, a cautionary tale that I was able to see at exactly the right time. I saw him being defined by the past in so many ways and realized that I needed to make a change in ways that the character is almost certainly not going to do on his own. I think he's incredibly compelling for what little material we have from him, and I do believe he's going to have a very important role in the series' future. And I'm very excited to see how that story may continue to unravel for the one and only Lord Jon Connington, one of my favorite characters in fiction, probably tied for my favorite or just behind one other, who maybe I'll talk about someday. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. I'd really appreciate it, and it does really help grow the channel. I'd count it as a birthday present. I'll have many more videos for you on A Song of Ice and Fire, House of the Dragon, Dunk and Egg, Game of Thrones in the very near future, and I am looking forward to sharing all of that with you. I am also looking forward to Comic-Con, which is getting closer and closer. I'm surprised. I think this is coming out during Worldcon as well, which I know Martin is also attending, so yeah, should be fun. I'll talk to you all soon. I forgot that I had to keep talking there. Goodbye, everyone.